like a game show. and a very good introduction. So I'm here to talk a little bit, thank you, yes. I'm here to talk a little bit about myself, first of all, my testimony, and then to share a little bit about college, give some advice about college. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my story, and there's some things about my story that you'll be very surprised about. Okay, so when I start, you might go, huh, this doesn't make any sense. But I'll begin to tell the story. It's a long and involved story because God's involved in my story. The best stories are God's stories. The worst stories are your stories. So God has to make an appearance, okay? So my story begins in the early 1900s. Okay, I know I might look old, and you're probably working out he doesn't look that old. You're right, and thank you for saying I don't look that old. Okay? Yes, I don't look that old. My story begins in the early 1900s because of my grandmother. And I'll tell you a little bit about my grandmother, and I'll tell you just a very little bit about my grandfather and connect it to me. So I'll talk a little bit more about this on Sunday, at least about my grandfather on Sunday. But my grandmother traveled in the early 1900s, and you can tell me the year when she traveled. She traveled from England, where she lived, to Boston in the United States to visit family and to work in Boston. She worked for a number of months, and then she had a ticket to travel back on the boat to England. The ticket was for a brand new boat, a brand new ship, and the ticket was for the Titanic. She didn't get on that boat because that boat never arrived in America, and so she had to make other plans to leave. So she traveled back to England on a different ship, I don't know which ship that was, and she started her life in England.